Kyle Brad from Chaparral Motorsports here with the option to shift or not to shift. That is the question. So this is my long-term review of the Honda CRF1000L2. This is the adventure sports model. I've been on it for about 6 weeks and I put just over 2,000 miles on this bike. Now what we're going to be doing is swapping this bike out, and I'm going to spend the next several weeks on the standard CRF1000L. We're also going to take it out and do a bunch of the same stuff that I've already done on the L2 so that I can see really the difference between the DCT version and the standard shift version. Now this adventure sports model that I've been on is new for late 2018 and 2019. It's a phenomenal machine. I've really enjoyed the 6 weeks I spent on this bike. It's taken me a lot of really cool places. Now I really have to hand it to Honda. The fit and finish on this machine is absolutely remarkable. Now I'm coming off a 2008 R1200 GS Adventure and a 2016 KTM 1190 Adventure R. And I've got to say, the BMW feels more like a tractor. The KTM feels more like a race bike, and this thing here is just super solid. The fit and finish is amazing, and if all you want to do is change the oil and ride, this is probably the bike you should take a look at. Now, while it did underwhelm me with overall horsepower on the freeway, there are lots of things that I really thought were striking when I first got on the bike, fired it up, and went for my first ride. Now, my first morning on this bike, I rolled it out. It was rainy, it was cold, it was wet. It was not a very nice, pleasant day to ride this motorcycle. But I was blown away. I reached up, hit the key, hit the starter, and it was like an immediate start and the super smooth rumble. It reminded me a lot of my Goldwing, where you just fired up, woo, and it was phenomenal.
All right, guys, well, there she is. It's going to be the first ride on the new Africa Twin Adventure Sports model. I unloaded it out of the truck in the pouring rain last night and put it in the garage, but I haven't actually ridden this bike, and that's our startup.
The smoothness of this motor is unlike any motorcycle that I've been on in a long time. Like I said, since I sold my 2006 Goldwing, I haven't been on a bike that has run this smooth. And then furthermore, I flipped out a little bit more when I got on it and I shifted it into first gear, and I'm like, well, wait a minute, am I even in first gear? The transition between neutral and first was so seamless, I was shocked. Most of my other bikes in the past, you pull in the clutch, you hit that shifter, you get a big clunk, and you definitely know that your first gear is engaged. But with this, silky, super smooth.
When this thing clicks into first gear, it's like, is it even in first gear? I mean, it's like the shift into first is super crazy smooth. A little bit hard to get used to.
I then took it out onto the highway and was able to experience what it felt like. Acceleration up to speed was really, really nice. Now, the one thing I did do a lot while I was on this bike for 6 weeks was I hit the horn a lot more than I probably should have. This is where I'm typically used to seeing that turn signal button, but it's down here on this particular bike. Now, there is something that I want to gripe about real quick. For this to be a 2019 model and it doesn't have self-canceling turn signals, I think that's a problem. So for whatever reason, the particular switch box controls on this bike have the turn signals below the horn button, versus every other motorcycle that I've pretty much ever ridden, it's reversed. So when I reach up to hit my turn signals off, I end up hitting the horn button, and that alerts the cars around me that I pretty much am not paying attention to what I'm doing.
Horn button's pretty close to the turn signal. Definitely easy to hit.
A feature that I actually really liked about this bike was the traction control. Traction control being able to turn off by just holding a single button down for a few seconds, and it would allow you to automatically bump through the different levels of traction control that you wanted. That was really nice for riding in the rain or in the snow or in the sand, and I love the fact that you can hit that button for a few seconds and turn it completely off. That is a feature that I really liked.
Oh, that's what traction control feels like. It's the first time I felt it. Ready? Nope, didn't kick on. We get more slippage from the rear brake and anti-lock kicking in than we do on acceleration. That's pretty mind-boggling.
Another very similar feature is the ABS. Literally just reach up on the dash, hit the ABS off button, and your ABS is now disabled. That's a function that's not so easy to work on lots of other motorcycles that are out there in the marketplace. The dash panel on this bike is really nice. The screen setup and the way that the electronics work on this bike are all very easy to use. The screen almost reminds me of an iPhone in the vertical orientation, kind of about that same size, and very, very user-friendly and easy to use. Now, if there's one thing up here in the control panel and the dash that I wish Honda would have done, and that is, it's fly-by-wire. Why doesn't this thing have cruise control? That's something that I think all these bikes that are electronically equipped should have from the factory. Now, as far as fuel consumption goes, I rode this bike really hard, definitely harder than a lot of the guys who are going to be purchasing this bike are going to ride on a daily basis. So that 33 miles per gallon was a pretty even split between on-road and off-road. Now, on-road, I have to kind of obey the speed limit-ish, but I did tend to push the limits there a little bit too. Off-road, the throttle was pinned the majority of the time, and that absolutely sucks up fuel consumption. So 33 miles per gallon isn't what you should typically expect on this machine, but I am curious to find out what that fuel consumption looks like when I get on the DCT version, riding it the same way that I rode the standard transmission. This particular model came with heated grips, which I found really nice on those cold, wet days. Simple push of a button, and you can turn the heated grips on and off. Another creature comfort up here in the cockpit that I really liked was the fact that these risers are significantly taller than the risers on the standard Africa Twin. That allowed me to have a much more upright seating position. The other thing you're going to notice is how much more travel this L2 has as compared to the traditional L model. That was something that I really used. I mean, I hammered this thing, I jumped it, I had some fun with it, and the suspension was perfect for all the situations that I put this bike into. Now that, coupled with the more dirt bike style seat, allowed me to be much more up and above the traffic from the other Africa Twins that I've ridden in the past, where I kind of felt down more at eye level with the people in cars. So those couple features I really liked about the Adventure Sports model that I was testing for the last several weeks. As I mentioned earlier, the windshield on this bike is significantly taller than the standard traditional 1000L. Now this is pretty close to the right height of windshield that I would pick if I was going to choose a windshield to put on a bike, which is quite nice. What's going to happen, I'm 5'9", and this windshield, the wind hits this and comes straight up and over. I had a really nice, clean pocket of air right here at the top of my head. When it comes to riding in inclement weather, I really like the handguards. The handguards allowed me to be shielded from the wet and the wind. Well, I love these handguards for wet and inclement weather. They did not do such a good job as soon as I dropped the bike for the first time. The first time the bike fell over and hit the edge here, it actually cracked the mounts over here, and this end of the handguard was flapping around. I was able to get it fixed up there with some safety wire, which, if you're going to go with the OEM handguards, I recommend you carry some of that with you because it made a really easy, quick fix. If I had a suggestion for Honda, it would be to be able to make the handguard have a steel backbone or an aluminum backbone so that that would be a much more solid platform if you fell over on the side and you wouldn't break the handguards. Now, another creature comfort that I really liked in inclement weather was the massiveness of this tank right here. This tank acted like a huge fairing and shielded my legs from the wind and the rain. As you can see, wind's going to come up over here and just kind of pass right past me. This indentation here and where your legs sit ended up being a very comfortable position while on this motorcycle. Now, while the actual seating position is a little bit wider than that of the traditional 1000L, I found it very comfortable for my particular body type and the style of riding that I do. Now, many of you are going to use these motorcycles for two-up motorcycle touring, and I've got to say that this power plant on this motorcycle is perfect for two-up riding. So where this motorcycle lacks an overall horsepower for that race-type feel at high RPMs, it completely makes up for that in torque and grunt when you're riding two-up or carrying a big load. That overall grunt that this bike has when you roll on the throttle and roll off the clutch is astounding. It has this really deep grunt that just digs in and goes. No stalling, no stuttering, it just does a phenomenal job. While riding two-up, there was a lot of room on this motorcycle. Some of the other bikes that I've had in the past, it's really cramped. So the rider's cramped and you're cramped and it's an uncomfortable situation. With this seat being so large in the back and these foot pegs being positioned where they're at, it was really a comfortable position. She was able to move forward and back. Now, if I was going to use this bike as a two-up bike primarily, I would absolutely swap out those aluminum rear foot pegs for something that has a rubber top or some sort of rubber cushion so she would have a little bit more comfortable of a ride. All right, moving out of the cockpit, let's take a look at some of the features and benefits of this bike. So moving down here to the front of the bike, these brakes worked phenomenally. We got the big dual discs up here. Never had any issue with them at all. The suspension travel on this bike is significantly longer than that of the traditional CRF1000L. As you can see, we're using all of it, all the way down here to the very bottom. We only have about 3/4 of an inch of this shock travel that we didn't end up using or bottoming out. Moving up a little bit, we got the crash guards. These were used a lot. This bike's laid over on its side quite a bit, took a few naps, and it protected the bodywork very nicely. Now that's one thing that I was really afraid of. This is a metal tank. I still can't believe that an off-road motorcycle like this has a metal tank, but I was terrified every time this thing fell over, especially on really rocky terrain. But the way that these engine guards were designed, they did a great job at protecting this beautifully painted tank. The skid plate also did its job at protecting this bike extremely well. As you can see, this aftermarket skid plate comes out and around the headers. So it covers the headers, it covers the OEM heat shields that the OEM headers have on them, just provides extra protection, and it really works. Moving back here to the foot peg, the foot peg is both wider and fatter than the foot pegs on the traditional CRF1000L. Jumping up to the rear of the bike, this particular Adventure Sports model, ta-da, features a stainless steel luggage rack. This is very convenient for carrying things and lashing things down. It's a very solid platform. I was able to put a large duffel bag here on the back and strap it across, and it allowed me to carry a full weekend's worth of gear with me, actually 4 days worth of gear, and everything fit into that bag, and I didn't need panniers, and it was just an all-inclusive package. Worked really well. All right, and taking one final walk around the motorcycle, I think we've covered just about everything. This Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sports model, the CRF1000L2, has been a phenomenal vehicle for the last 6 weeks. Again, I put almost 2,000 miles on this Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sport model, the CRF1000L2. I've got to say, there isn't anywhere in the world that I wouldn't be comfortable taking this machine. We paddled it up and took it to Glamis and spent a day out there battling the dunes. That was epic, and that video should be in our queue, so go take a look at that one. It handles the highway like a touring motorcycle. It handles the dirt much like a really large dirt bike. It really was able to perform in all of the various places that we took it. If there was one place I would say it had its weak point, that would be the snow. But again, that would be dictated by the nature of the terrain, not necessarily the capabilities of the motorcycle, because there's not a single bike out there that does snow well, unless, of course, it has a timber sled on it. Thank you so much for tuning in to this detailed review, long-term review of this Honda Africa Twin Adventure Sports model. Now, stay tuned, as we're going to pick up a DCT model this next week and put a bunch of miles on it in the same types of terrain that we had this bike. So we're going to come back to you and let you know which terrain or which style of bike handled which terrain the best. I'm Kyle Bradshaw from Chaparral Motorsports. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, take care and ride safe out there.